So let's get started. History is absolutely riddled with examples of technologies which have been real game changers in terms of changing complete industries and ways of doing business. I've put up here this picture of a steam train, really to illustrate what happened in the 1800s, going back a long way now, in terms of the infrastructure of railways that was built and took over from canals in terms of transporting goods. In a very short space of time, really, in a space of 20 or 30 years, you saw the demise of canals. I've shown that picture before. They were left high and dry, and the trains took over in terms of transporting goods. And I think we can learn a lot from some of these examples going back in history to what's happening now in retail, because we're seeing some real changes, some real structural changes in retail that are having a real effect on the way that we do business. Don't show a lot of graphs in these presentations, but this one I find really quite fascinating. This is a graph that is generated from data which is collected by IMRG. And if you haven't heard of IMRG, they are the Interactive Media in Retail Group, which doesn't really explain what they do. Their little strapline that they use now is probably more helpful. It says they're the voice of e-retail, and they very much are. Their membership is drawn from a lot of the main suppliers in e-commerce that you'll see exhibiting around this hall. And what they do is they collate data every month. One of the key things that they do is they collate data every month from the larger and smaller online retailers, and they take that data, they amalgamate it, and they publish a lot of statistics, which is helpful to us as suppliers within the e-commerce market, but is also really useful to you as online retailers as well. And this graph is the sort of headline graph, if you like, and they've been collecting this data for 10 or 11 years now. And I don't know if you can see, actually you've got repeater monitors running back there. You can see that it runs from April 2000 all the way up to the current date. I think the most recent data we've got on this graph is August 2011. And this shows total online retail sales in the UK. So this is by value, the total online retail sales. And you can see that climbing from a base of zero, it wasn't obviously nothing before then, but from a baseline of zero here in 2000, you could see the pattern and the climb in terms of online retail sales. And there's been quite an acceleration in terms of sales. And you can see it reflecting the wider retail market in terms of fluctuations from month to month. And those peaks for the months tend to be the late autumn period running up to Christmas as we're entering now. So we'd expect to see a repeat of that spike from August to December 2010 being repeated in 2011, albeit at a higher level. And in fact, online retail sales are growing at around about 15–16% in total. Ray's going to show you some figures later on, which breaks that down by market sector as well. So you can see that some retail markets are performing better in terms of online retail sales than others. So we'll come back to that. But total online retail sales in the UK in 2010 were about 59 billion pounds. Say up around about 15 or 16% from the year previous to that. So it's going to be very interesting to see what we get as an increase at the end of 2011. As I stand here now, for every pound that is spent on retail purchases in the UK, around about 20 pence of that is now spent online. It may be even slightly higher than that now with the shift towards e-commerce. But that means 1 in 5 pounds is being spent online. So it's a really important market in terms of retail, which is why I say that online retail is a real game changer in terms of structurally changing what's happening in the retail sector in the UK. And I think potentially what we've seen in terms of some of the less good news in retail, some of the retail failures that we've had over the last few years, obviously the major one starting with Woolworths, and then obviously there's been a whole load of quite headline retail failures over the last few years. It's easy to look at these businesses going into administration and thinking that this is to do with the economy, it's to do with the downturn generally in what's happening in the world and some of the credit issues that we have. But I would argue that there is a case for that, but also it is this structural change in the way that retail is working in the UK, the way we're buying, the way we're behaving as consumers, and the technology that is now available to us within the retail sector that is making some of these businesses unviable if they're not keeping up and if they're not changing the way that they do things in order to keep up. And I think you probably have some knowledge of some of these retailers and would know perhaps why some of them have failed to survive in this difficult market. But as I say, I think the downturn in the economy is masking what is a more fundamental structural change in e-commerce. And I don't think we're ever going to be going back to what we may have seen in terms of our high streets. So what we've got is a rise of multi-channel. I'm sure a lot of you in this room will understand about multi-channel retailing. Just to really recap on that, a multi-channel retailer will have a number of different channels to enable them to get to their marketplace. But the key thing is that a customer goes at the center of that. Customers' requirements, what customers want, the way that customers want to deal with them appears very much at the center of their business. And these are the retailers that are really thriving when you look at the performance of some of the bigger retailers and some of the smaller ones as well. So you may well have started off with a shop, you may then have a website, you may have direct sales through catalogs, and you'll almost certainly then have some phone sales coming through as a result of some of the direct and web sales as well. I'm including mobile in this as well. But effectively, it's the customer that's at the heart. And what good retailers are doing is giving their customers the option of dealing with them how they want to deal with them at any given time. So a customer may well want to start the transaction with you in store. They may want to take some information away with them. They may then want to share that information with a family member or a friend at home on the web. And maybe they'll buy from you at that point, or maybe they'll come back into the store to complete the purchase. And the retailers that are really winning are the ones that are really harnessing this and giving the customer the option to deal with them at any stage, however they want, without altering the terms, if you like. And John Lewis is a past master at this in terms of offering the same deal across all of the different sales channels. So what are the factors that are really driving online retail sales growth at the expense of high street retail growth? Well, I think there's a number of factors. We don't have enough time to go through them comprehensively, but I think there's a few key things which are really affecting this change in balance. That slide I showed before showing the growth of online retail up to 20% now in terms of total retail sales. So why is it that online retail is growing while high street sales are stagnating? Well, this is a phrase that we may have used in the past, we may still use it, just nipping to the shops, or just need to go and pop into the shops and get something, just need to go into town to get this. But this is a phrase that we're perhaps using a little bit less now, and I think there's some good reasons for that. Let's just reflect a little bit on this slide here. This is 2007, I've put it in nice sepia tones, and if you look at the price of fuel, 98.9 pence a litre. Remember those days? Those heady days of fuel at less than £1 a litre? Well, the fact that we're now paying 130, 140 a litre is making a real impact on whether we choose to go to town, or it becomes a considered purchase almost as to whether we decide to go to town today, or whether we save up our purchases and requirements and go once in the week perhaps, or once every 2 weeks. And in fact, there was some information reported last week to show that fuel sales in the UK have dipped in volume terms by around about 15% in the first half of this year. So this is a true thing. It's having a real effect on the amount that we use our cars. And then when you get to town, of course, the parking issue. A lot of local authorities are reducing the amount of parking available. Certainly in my own local town, they've put up the price of parking about sort of 50-60%. I think the average local authority parking increase is 44%. It was being reported last week over the last 12 months. So there's a real discouragement in terms of going into town. So if I can shop online, I save myself the fuel, I save myself the parking costs, and it's probably an easier experience as well. So again, this is driving us to be buying online rather than making that trip to the shops. How else does online win? Well, finding what you want. I mean, the internet is probably the biggest, well, undoubtedly the biggest warehouse you could possibly imagine. If you want to find something, you can be guaranteed that you'll find it on the internet, whereas you can't be guaranteed you're going to find it in store. A store has a finite size. You know, it doesn't matter whether you've got a 1,000 square foot store or a 100,000 square foot store. You can only stock so many physical products, whereas the internet is infinite. And with the rise of, we work with a lot of retailers, and with the rise of drop shipping or supplier dispatch, you're seeing the ability of quite small retailers to be able to offer a very wide portfolio, a very wide catalogue of products. They may not stock them physically, but the fact is they can make them available, they can sell them, and then their suppliers can dispatch them for them. And this is becoming more prevalent now. A few years ago, it was frowned upon. A lot of suppliers weren't interested. If you didn't want to buy a pallet of product, they certainly weren't going to break up a pallet and send out small amounts, especially not send them to your customers. But increasingly, brand owners and wholesalers and importers are much more likely to engage with a retailer now in that whole area of doing shipping direct to customers. And again, that's helping to drive online retail. And of course, the other aspect of here is non-physical products as well, because of course things like music downloads, books increasingly, and other products that don't have a physical element to them are tailor-made for selling online rather than through shops. This is a really key one. This is where online really does highlight the power of online shopping as opposed to traditional high street shopping. The ability to shop when we want. And the fact is that when you look at online retail sites in a number of different markets, and we've got clients in all sorts of markets, and this is just two particular markets that we've chosen, really to illustrate the point that the pattern of retail customer shopping online is fairly consistent across different markets. And you can see here that this is a distribution of people on an e-commerce website and buying through a 24-hour period. It starts from 3 o'clock in the afternoon one day and it runs to 3 o'clock in the afternoon the next day. And you can see that the busiest time is between 9 and 10 o'clock at night. Well, of course, we all know that most retail shops are closed at 9 and 10 o'clock at night. So those customers who want to buy, and that's a lot of customers, and that's when a lot of people do want to buy products buy retail products. Shops are shut. Where can they go? They go online. So an online retailer has the advantage here, or a multi-channel retailer has the advantage here if they have shops and the online side as well. The other thing that's driving this growth in terms of online retail is the confidence of consumers. We've got a number of years now to really get used to e-commerce and the way that it works. And pretty much all of us now are buying online. If we buy retail products, we buy online. I could bore you with lots of statistics about who's buying and whether it's older people, younger people, and different markets. But effectively, what I would say is the same customers who come through your door and buy from you are the same customers pretty much who are coming into your online store and buying from you there as well. Which is why you need to treat them in a similar way and allow them to switch between different channels and move between the different sales channels that you have so that they can buy from you. And I say it's older people, it's younger people. Younger people are quite interesting, of course, in as much that, you know, a young kid now who's maybe 6 or 7 years old is very au fait with the internet. As far as they're concerned, the internet has always existed. It's always been there. It's an all-the-time connection. It's sitting in the corner of the room. It's broadband. Increasingly, it's a tablet maybe in the living room. If they want to find out something, if they're researching for homework or looking to add things to their Christmas list, where do they go? Well, probably the first, last, and only place they go is the internet. And that's where they do their research. And increasingly, of course, these kids are going to get older. And as they get older, those habits stick with them. So the habits that you create in childhood are the habits that stick with you through your life. So as retailers, we need to adapt to these changing consumer habits and make sure that we're responding to the way that people want to interact with us and buy from us. Coming on to the growth of mobile. Big subject at the moment. There's a lot of information about mobile out in the hall today and tomorrow. Because increasingly it's the way of choice, it's the way that we choose to interact with the internet and with online retailers in particular as well. A few stats for you. 27% of adults now have a smartphone, whether it's an iPhone or an Android or a BlackBerry or Windows 7, etc. 47% of teenagers, back to my point previously about changing consumer habits, 47% of teenagers have a smartphone of one flavour or another. 80% of these devices never get switched off. Most of you in this room have probably got a smartphone in your pocket, and you probably keep it switched on most of the time because you're using it for so many different things. But the fact that it's there, it's switched on, and with the sort of facilities that it has built into it, this is an ideal medium for retailers to be communicating with you and you to be communicating with retailers as well. And let's just have a look at some of that, because this ties in with this great rise of social media that we've seen over the last few years. And when you go around shopping centres, this is the one at Bristol in Cabot Circus, when you walk around a shopping centre now, everybody's got their phones out. They're not making phone calls, they're not talking to each other, but they are interacting. And there's the potential for you as a retailer to be interacting with your customers. And it's some of the ways that you can do that. Don't need to bore you with details of social media, you're all familiar with this. You might not be familiar with this one though, and it's quite interesting sometimes how quickly things can grow in this market sector. This Qzone social media site is something that's grown from nowhere over the last couple of years. It's got 400 million subscribers. It's in China, so we've never heard of it. But it's amazing how quickly these things can grow, and so you really need to keep on top of the changes in the market, get involved in things that you may not naturally want to get involved in, but you need to understand them from a retail point of view. And again, we can help with that. There's lots of people out in the hall who can help you to understand that. Because it comes back to engaging with customers. How do you engage with your customers in this modern world where we have smartphones and we want to shop online, we also want to shop in store? In the few minutes I've got left before I hand over to Ray, I just want to share with you a few ideas about some of the ways that as retailers you can engage with your customers and use this technology. This is by no means a definite list, a definitive list of the things that you should be doing. It's just giving you some ideas of things that you might do. Think about mobile when you're redeveloping your e-commerce website, or when you're thinking about further development for your e-commerce website. Does it work on a smartphone? It's likely to work on a tablet, because tablets will use the standard web browser and the screen will be replicated as you'd expect on a laptop or on a desktop machine. Although be careful about Flash, because Apple products still don't run Flash because of the ongoing long-standing dispute between Apple and Adobe. But you know, never know, that might change. But what you should make sure is that you check your website on a smartphone. Make sure that it works properly. Make sure that the page design doesn't break. And preferably have a specific mobile interface for your e-commerce website. It's often a cut-down version of the main website, which gives you the key information, which means that when I'm browsing on my smartphone, I can get to exactly what I want to get to very quickly without a lot of the peripheral information. Because what we know is that generally when people are shopping on their smartphones, they know what they want. They're not really browsing, they're going specifically to find something and to buy it, or at least to find out the price so they can do price comparison. In the research that we've done within our own client base, we've identified that around about 10% of the visitors to our clients' websites are visiting from smartphone devices of one type or another. And around about 5 or 6% of the total spend of our clients' e-commerce websites is coming from smartphones. And that percentage in terms of sales is growing quite rapidly as more of us get used to the idea of grabbing a phone out of our pocket whenever we want to do a bit of research or buy something. And it's all becoming a lot easier as well. So check that, make sure that your website works properly, and if possible, make sure you've got an e-commerce platform that allows you to have a dedicated mobile interface to deliver the information effectively to your customers. Here's something else. We've all seen them. I've seen quite a lot of them out in this room today, actually. This is QR codes. QR codes are great. They differ from barcodes in as much that a barcode is literally just a reference to a database that you then have to go and search to get information about that barcode. With a QR code, the scanner within your phone, otherwise known as a camera, with the right little app, will enable you to go and scan a barcode that appears on a poster or wherever it might be, and that will then, that has information embedded in it. So it could be information such as contact details, phone numbers, information about a product, or it could be taking you, increasingly it'll take you to a web page. And it can be used in all sorts of different scenarios. This is on a poster in a a railway station, so I'm walking past, I'm late for the train, I see that, and I think, oh, that's interesting, scan that, great. And it's given me that information, I can read it at my leisure on the train. This is something we mocked up actually we went to a cycle show and did a talk about the cycle industry, about e-commerce within the cycle industry last week. And we mocked this up to show that how bike retailers could be putting something other than just a little sticker with their name and a phone number on their bicycles, and they could actually use a QR code, which is more likely to be left on there, and it also means that somebody who sees the bike and thinks it's quite interesting, again, can just scan it and find information about it. And Ray saw this at the weekend. He was walking around the streets, and he saw a car in the shopping centre, and it had a QR code, and he clicked on it, and it gave you all the information, all the spec, and it gave him a video about the car and all the information about it. So as retailers, you can think about this. You can put these on the windows of your shops. So as people are walking past when you're closed, when they're thinking about shopping, 9 o'clock at night, they go, oh yeah, that's interesting, I'll scan that, remember that for tomorrow. Things like the O2 priority moments is something which is quite interesting. As a retailer, you can get involved in services like this, where you can you can make offers available so that people can save money when they're shopping in the high street or shopping online as well. So there's all sorts of services available. I'll leave you with this one though. This is shopping walls, and this is actually a photograph of a shopping wall in South Korea. And although that looks like a conventional supermarket shelf, supermarket aisle, it's actually a video wall, or effectively a video wall. All that is just a virtual shopping wall of products. And what this guy's doing, he's got his phone, he's just walking along and he's scanning individual items. And he can scan those individual items, add them to a shopping basket, choose his delivery slot with the retailer, gets delivered when he's back at home this evening. And this is also being done by Ocado in the new shopping centre in the city here in London. Aesthetically, it's not quite so nice, but you can get the idea that effectively you walk along, you scan the items, and then you end up buying those items. It's great because you don't have, for people who are busy and on the move, if they just want to buy a few items, they can do that. And I can see this starting to appear in all sorts of different places out in the street, where people aren't necessarily going to need to go into the shops to do their purchasing. They'll get used to just scanning items and paying for them in that way. Going full circle then, coming back to my canals again. What we've seen with canals over the last 200 years or so, since they've stopped being the sort of the busy highways of transporting goods, is they've been reinvented as a leisure activity. You go to this canal, which is Llangollen in Wales, you'll see there's hundreds of people enjoying the canal every weekend, thousands probably enjoying, just sort of drifting up and down the canal, enjoying it as a leisure activity. I would put it to you that that's what we're going to see with the high streets. The high streets are going to come out of this change as more of a leisure destination, more of a place where we go for entertainment. Retail will still be there, but I think that the bulk of the serious retailing will actually be done online. So I'm going to hand over to Ray now, and he's going to talk about some of the practical aspects of setting up and running your e-commerce website.
Hi, good morning everybody. Just a quickie on this. What I'm trying to determine here is you're here for the day, so signposting some of the things you may like to see as a result of seeing this, but also if you are retailers, is to sort of explore your split personality, because as well as being retailers, you're also consumers. So I want to cover getting in the minds of your customers, because you are a consumer, and presumably if I did a hands up, who's bought online? And I presume more or less 90% of everybody here is doing it. So looking at where you start, understanding your retailers and really getting to know them. And Google are going to be coming on a little bit later to talk about this in detail, but that's where you start, Google or another search engine. But interestingly enough, and I don't know how many of you are aware of this, Google allow you as retailers to work a search engine from the other side. So you can do an investigation of what you're selling, how you're selling it, and how it's actually going to be recovered. And that's called Insights for Search. Does anybody know about Insights for Search? Nobody, right, okay, it's a free service from Google. That's the URL. What does it do? It gives you the ability to put in a search term, like you normally do for Google anyway, and to look at whether it's a web search or whether it's worldwide over the last period of 12 months up to the 10 years we're talking about, and any specific categories. I put in Ralph Lauren polo shirts because we were looking at some fashion entry. And what I got back was the interest in that particular product over the time, over the 12 months I've got here. If there are any key events, if there are anything like, if you put in iPhone, you get the actual iPhone launch dates with a flagged item which will take you straight to the page that actually identifies that. But more interestingly is where that interest occurs, and then if you scroll down the page, so if we look at this down the bottom end of it, the search terms. So I keyed in Ralph Lauren polo shirts, but what actually are consumers keying in that end up buying or looking at Ralph Lauren polo shirts as a page? And cheap polo shirts come up as top of the list, polo t-shirts, Ralph Lauren UK. So regardless of what you think the search terms you're using are relevant to the products you're selling, this is what actually is being used. So it's a great tool to tune in if you're using pay-per-click campaigns or other forms of offline advertising as well, to actually home in to what the consumers are doing. This is good stats, this is real. This isn't somebody going around with a clipboard, this is reality. It also gives you rising searches. So interestingly enough, over the last 12 months, girls looking for polo shirts ending up buying Ralph Lauren has risen by 70% over that period of time. I wouldn't have expected that. So that's a very useful start point if you're looking to really tune in. And if you're talking to the social media guys out there later today, or you're talking about pay-per-click campaigns, this will help you. It doesn't cost you anything to do it, and that's the URL to get to it. Very easy to see. The second one is Google Alerts, and I'm sure most of you know about Google Alerts. But again, if you're wanting to advertise or market your products and services, then Google Alerts does help you, because instead of having to go out and trawl and say, what's going on today in my particular market sector, let Google tell you. So you put in a whole bunch of terms. It doesn't have to be one thing. I put Ralph Lauren polo shirts again, and I just said everything on it once a day, only the best results, and deliver it to my email address. So once a day I get a feed, and if you click the preview button, you'll get an instant replay of what's out there. But once a day, rather than me going searching on it, I get told of the hot items that relate to that particular search term. And you can put a whole bunch in. It's not just one, you can put a whole bunch in. But interestingly enough, at the date that we were talking about this, it was coming up to a weekend that the Royal Aberdeen Golf Club was actually doing the Walker Cup, and Ralph Lauren were going to be there, and there was going to be a lot of publicity. So if you're a retailer and using Ralph Lauren polo shirts, now is the time to actually put some advertising out there, possibly in Scotland, and say you're a good retailer, always in stock, plenty of product. Because that will then link in with the actual consumer interests. So there's two things. One is Google Insights for Search will give you the historical interest of consumer searching, and Google Alerts will give you the forward serendipity and the sort of opportunistic ability to do some marketing for your services. And that's it, just googlealerts.com/alerts. As long as you've got a Google email account, you can set yourself up. Another free service. Nick alluded to the fact that I was going to come up with a page from IMRG. Again, if you're not members or not involved in it, IMRG, the organisation that do the IDIS, Internet Delivery is Safe and Internet Shopping is Safe. And they're the organisers and arbiters and the custodians of that. But they say, provide all the stats. And online, you can see here, year-on-year change to August 2011, everybody, more or less, is in double digits. And it's very easy to explain the ones that are not. Electricals down, I'm not surprised, but travel down, well, I'm not surprised about that as well, whereas the world is getting smaller for the places you can go on holiday. So if you're not seeing 10% or plus in your preferred market sector as retailers, then there's some real serious tuning you need to do your e-commerce system. And what I want to do now is look at various ways you can achieve that. First of all, the platform itself. There are lots of things, if you're here to actually configure or actually appoint a new e-commerce platform supplier, there is a lot of serious questions you need to ask them. Have you got the ability to take it on board, take it for a period of time, normally between sort of fortnight and a month, and actually test it before you commit a penny, before you sign a contract? And I would say that most good e-commerce systems will allow you to do that. You want to see whether it is performing, whether it has got the breadth and depth of information to cover your retail purchases and the nuances of your particular niche, and that it actually works for you. There are some very good e-commerce systems out there, but they sometimes are just not right. It's like people deal with people. You've really got to tune into the way that the back office system works, and if you can't, then it's best to leave it alone. And it's probably a very good idea to leave it alone before you've actually committed to purchasing it. Intuitive content management system, yes, it's got to be looking at you as a retailer. So if you're adding a product, it says, okay, do you want to add similar products like this? And be able to repeat the exercise without going through a full page each time. It really does need to have now an integrated checkout. Gone are the days, really, of having a separate operation that's doing a shopping cart operation as against the e-commerce platform side of things. It should be a non-template design. Although, when we look at this a bit later, you'll see that e-commerce sites are similar, and they're similar for very good reasons. But you have the ability to actually decide on how those style sheets or how the look and feel of your site is actually developed. It's got easy product management, obviously, because that's what you need to do, and has links and communicates with offline systems like Sage or fulfillment providers. It also handles all the major payment service providers and multiples of them, because as we found last year, payment service providers do go offline at busy times, and therefore I would certainly recommend having 2 available to you to give you actually, a loss of a day, 11th of December would be a nightmare. So for the sake of setting up what effectively is a low-cost secondary payment service provider is a good idea. It's got an advanced search system. As you know, everybody's searching to get into your site, therefore they will need a search on your site. We know that between 30 and 40% of people, as soon as they arrive on the home page, do a search rather than go looking for products and browsing. So make sure that your search system is advanced. It deals with multiple phrases. It deals with plurals. It possibly deals with misspellings and isn't going to sort of turn away. That Ralph Lauren golf shirts, I did another search on golf clubs, and there was a website that did golf clubs. So I put golf club, singular. Only one item came up, even though they had, if you put golf clubs in there, they had 300 or 400 lines. So make sure even simple things like that don't turn people off. That you have a good training and support, and that's ongoing. It's not a sort of job and finish for the e-commerce supplier. You've got ongoing, because as Nick has alluded to, was actually shown, things aren't standing still. A week may be a long time in politics, but it's an actual lifetime in terms of e-commerce development. So keeping up to date with the training of your system as things change, as mobile come along, is essential. And if there's a cost to that, you need to identify that early on in the system. Order management, customer management, that's a given. Automatic generation of external feed data, as you're going into eBay, into Google, into Kelco, that should be part and parcel of the system, and you shouldn't be paying extra to achieve that process. Migration of data in and out so that you can relate to your online and offline system, again, is fairly essential. And it should have a range of promotional tools in there to enhance that. So banner management, under your control. It should be able to actually raise all the sorts of things, sale prices, under your control. So a start date and end date are automatically organized. A reporting toolkit, not quite as far as Google Analytics, but certainly some real headline figures within the content management system should be there. It should be scalable. Be very interesting to talk to the e-commerce supplier and see what their minimum customer size is and who their major customer size is, and see how that scales within that sort of a range. So you don't have to look at changing your e-commerce platform as soon as you grow, say, above £1 million or £2 million turnover a month. And the last one in there, which I've highlighted, is before you engage with them, talk about their exit strategy. Something might go wrong. You may want to leave, you may want to change completely. In which case, you want to know before you sign up what the exit strategy is, what the time scale is, how it's achieved, how much data that you have, how you then migrate that across. Planning at that stage, when you're looking to buy, is much easier when you're halfway through a contract and you suddenly have to go somewhere else. Nick was talking about the rise of mobile and the way that things are working out for that. And is it all getting complicated? Well, I think it's going to be the other way around. I'll show you why later on. But basically, All retailers are busy. If you talk to them at any time, whether they're busy with customers or busy buying or busy refurbishing their shop, they're always busy. And the consumer base, if you look at it again as you being a consumer, you want an easy time of it. You don't want buying something to be complicated. You want quality information delivered now to whatever device you're looking at, how you're researching it, and to be making a credible decision on how to buy. And the connectivity between the two of those is a screen of some shape or form. That's where most of it is going to be done at the moment. So you need to make sure that your goods and services are visible to via any of those processes to your target customers. So what are the retailers? We took a couple of quotes. We were doing some interviews with our clients, and one said, we need an e-commerce site that's been built by people who understand retail, not a bunch of geeks, people who understand retail. And as they say, something as simple as a duplication feature saves them time. Also, another one said, it's got to be easy management, because with the system where I was with previously, it was taking a lot of time. I've now done 4 times the work in half the time. So they've had an 8-fold increase in time saving as a result of just switching between an older system and a newer system. And the main key part of that is time. That's the thing we can't really avoid losing, but this is one of the ways of doing it. So make sure when you're talking to the guys out there that you're looking at how efficient it is, how much time you're going to need to devote to it to make it work for you. So, back to being retailers, now we're talking about being consumers again. So what do you look for in an e-commerce site? Well, it's got to have a page that works for you. It's got to be understandable, it's got to be visible, it's got to actually say it's selling the products and services you want. You then want to know how you're going to get around the site. So that's got to be intuitive. And that's where we come to where a lot of sites are similar, because it's pointless inventing a new navigation system when all that people want to do is save time and make it easy for themselves. So you want to have something that is possibly similar to a lot of other sites, but is familiar. And I'm sure that works for you as consumers. Therefore, you've got this sense of purpose and direction going across the pages, and you know that every click of the mouse is getting you closer to a product. And when you get to it, that's clear. It's not cluttered as a page, it just shows you the data you need to know. And because it's not a printed page, these can have sub-pages, so that if customers want to know sizing detail, warranty detail, technical information, as most good sites do, these are sub-pages off that product page. So you're not bothering them with all that information if they don't need to see it. And at the top, if they're buying from you, that running total checkout visible at all times, and it should be including the delivery costs as well. And mobile, because we're focusing on that, and there's lots of guys out there that are talking about mobile operation. Have you tested your website? Have you tested your e-commerce site to make sure that all pages and the search results are visible on Apple, on Android, on BlackBerry possibly, although they've had a bit of a problem over the last 24 hours, and obviously Windows Mobile. That it's right the way through to checkout. So if you are in the street, you can actually make that purchase. So you've seen it in the street and you realize you can buy it cheaper online. There's only 3 or 4 stock online. Why wait till you get home? Just make that purchase online and it will be delivered tomorrow, hopefully. And all the key information, because you've got a limited screen size, all the key information, so your validation that you've got the ISIS shopping safe is safe with us, is available up on the top of the screen rather than necessarily down on the footlights. For all the major systems, you could have ones that are app friendly, but I would actually say we're heading now, unless you've got a niche market and you want something that's very specific, I would say the whole thing. All good e-commerce platforms now should be delivering a system that is available, so whatever screen device you pick up that's reasonably mainstream, it'll work. And as Nick said, there's still a lot of people out there with Apple, and there still will be, and currently Flash content is not visible. So if your home page has got flash content, if very serious parts of your e-commerce pages have got flash content, then Apple viewers won't be looking at them. They'll just be seeing blanks. So let's take an example and just run through it. Starting with Google again, I was looking for personally, I decided to put in girls' cycling clothes in there as that particular thing, so there's a fashion entry. And as you're probably all aware, I think that's that one there. Yeah, maybe it's not easier to screen on the screen. That part here and this part here is all the pay-per-click items, and you really want to be in the top organic. So after you've done your tuning with insights to search, let it run for a few days or a few weeks, put in some of those key terms and see if Google is responding by placing you in the right place. Girl cycling clothes, first organic one, that's Minx Girl, that's coming right at the top of the organic listing. So there, that's not being paid to be there, that's just being there because it's naturally correct. Homepage, yep, it's telling me it's cycling clothing for girls. Very clear on that. A couple of products on front, an idea of the pricing structure, and some various help and associated pieces of information. Also available on your Apple iPhone and any other operating system on a mobile. When you get past the front page, also using the advantage of things like fly-out menus, so that it's again time-saving exercise. I'm sure you see it as well. Just flashing the mouse across the screen, as soon as you rest on category, it drops down and tells you automatically. You don't have to click to do it. Very helpful. People sometimes you always go for the left-hand navigation, others will just look and try to get through across to the top. If you give people multiple ways of getting at it, you're handling more than one angle. When you get into a product page, there's a garment. In large view, obviously, if it's got detail that you want people to see, the recommends, so a good e-commerce platform is already delivering, these are the things to go with that. And importantly, the text has been written individually. So all the key items on this website, the text has been written individually by the retailer and their staff. That's because if you just take the manufacturer's text, you won't be scored very well with Google. The act of making it more unique gives you a rise, and that's probably accounting for some of that placing in the organic search engine that she's got. Get to a checkout page, again very clear, very easy, very straightforward. There are some e-commerce systems out there, I have no idea why, start off with a quantity of 0 on the product and also that page. I have no idea why that, if you're buying something, it should be a minimum of 1. Very easy to change it should be, and again, she's got free delivery, so the estimated delivery is showing up as free. That's the price I'm going to pay. So, SagePay secured, so she's already got accreditation on that side, and also some other recommendations still covering through to the page. So, not cluttered, very straightforward. If the price is good, then why wouldn't you? After your customers have left the site, what else can you do using the technology that's available to you? And some of the stands out there will be helping you with these processes as well. Basket abandonment is one of them. As you know, or I know we are aware, over 90% of people that visit e-commerce stores leave the site without buying. So if you're getting between 4 and 5% conversion rate, you're doing well. And one of those reasons is an insecure checkout page. Make sure that it's secured either by using a good payment service provider, there's plenty out there to talk to, who then will give you that HTTPS security and also linking with the Internet Shopping in Safe accreditation as well. Then we can make sure that you're getting the customers carrying on. The delivery costs, make sure that they're already through. Again, good e-commerce platform will help calculate by putting into a vector what needs to be done to get it operational. You can do basket retrieval. Again, good e-commerce platforms, plenty out there for people to talk to, will give you the ability to, if you've captured the email address and an incomplete basket, you can actually go back to those people either automatically or manually and say, we saw you in the system, you were looking to buy things, well, you lost your way somewhere. Well, can we help any further? And by the way, if you click here, you can retrieve your basket. Most of the reasons that people go offline are benign, and our customer base shows that on average 10% of those abandoned baskets can be retrieved. So if you're not doing that, you're losing out on up to 10% of further income. Wish lists, that's another sort of basket abandonment. If someone's going in and thinking, either I wish that, or I'm trying to build a list of things I want to get, they should be built into the e-commerce platform. Debbie actually uses the Valentine's Day, because most of her customers are girls. She's going out encouraging them to go on and create wish lists to send to their boyfriends or partners. And yes, indeed, come February, she gets quite a lot of interest of people buying things early in February to satisfy those demands. Comparison site data, if you've got good prices, then why let people go elsewhere? Put the comparison price up. Most of the supermarkets are doing it. If you've got key product items you know you're really well priced on, then put the comparison site data up on the site. And if you haven't got it in stock, it is going to be a really valued item. Make sure you put them, give them the ability to let you know when it comes back. Okay. So there we have it, really. It's all to do with effective marketing to get things going. Have a good e-commerce platform that is facilitating most of those things you want to do, and it's applying the proven retail principles that you know, and you have the time left to do it. But one more slide. Nick did a sort of family tree and centric on the customer. What I'm saying is, further than that, your business should be centric on the e-commerce platform. So the in-store promotions, the mobile connections, the social media, web marketing, offline advertising, and you also use the QR codes should be all there supporting an omni-channel, that it all roots together. And there are people you can talk to about the offline advertising out in the stands. There's plenty of payment service providers. There are people that help you with the in-store promotions and the social media. A couple of really good guys out there will run you with that, and the web marketing side of things. On top of that, infrastructure, if you are running your own servers, do talk to the guys out there about the server platforms you'll be using, and again, full the test of what sort of uptime they've got, and also whether you can try them before you buy. So plenty to look for, plenty to do, and plenty of ways to tune your e-commerce platforms. If you want us to help, if you are too busy to do that investigation yourself, as Nick said earlier, just fill in the form. All we need is an email address and the e-commerce platform address, and we will do that in-depth investigation for you. No commitment as far as we're concerned, but you will have a 4 or 5 page report with some further hints and tricks that you can deploy if we think they're appropriate. Thank you ever so much for your time. I'm sorry we went on a little bit, but it was a late start. We're on stand 824 if you want to talk to us specifically, or if you've got any questions that are not answered by this section. So hand the forms in, if you have completed them, to a gentleman that's in the centre there, and he will take them off you. Or, of course, bring them back to stand 824. Thank you ever so much for your time. Have a good day.